Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 173. And today's episode, man, what we're going to talk about is plethora of different things. But what we're going to talk about per se is when you find somebody, who sees the real you, not the gimmick, not the bullshit, not the facade, not everything else that people, who don't really know you have have seen. And I'm not talking about no one night stand or no casual hookup because that's fleeting. I'm talking about somebody who sees you for you, who sees you in all your scars, who sees you at your lowest and still wants to be there. That's extremely important to find, man. Too many times in this day and age is like in the form of social media and online dating apps and all this other shit. It's like you lose the authenticity of actually meeting somebody and seeing them for who they are, right? Because a lot of times people will sit there and put up a front, they'll put up a facade of who they are, and when that facade comes crashing down, what you really see is a weak individual, you know, who is nowhere near whatever he or she said or says that they are, right? And what I mean by that is, I was told by this one particular individual or individuals, so yeah, I'm a strong, independent person. I'm this, I'm that. But when it comes time for them to handle conflict, they don't handle it in the correct way. Um, when it comes time for them to communicate, they don't communicate. And when it comes time for them to actually communicate and actually try to save something that's worthwhile, they don't do that. They instead of them communicating, they attack you. You know what I mean? Or they bring up your shortcomings, your flaws, and everything like that as well. Um, Now I'm not talking about one person in general. I'm just saying in general because it's like men and women in both parties. I don't care if you're gay, straight, heterosexual. I mean, well, gay, heterosexual, binary, whatever you are, right? Yeah, like the bottom line is like people have to know how to properly communicate, and I think a lot of people nowadays, and it might just be me in my age, in my age group, where I see a lot of people afraid to be vulnerable, or they'll ignore the red flags until they can't ignore the red flags until it's detrimental. And it's like, okay, like what are you really doing? And like how are you sitting there and not even paying attention to what this person is telling you or what they're showing you? A saying that I usually say is that if the preview to the movie is what exactly is going to play out in your life. If you're dealing with somebody who's abusive, if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't know how to communicate, in a respectful way, and it doesn't just mean abuse doesn't mean just physically. It could be emotionally, verbally, or a plethora of different types of it, or it could be all three. It doesn't get better. It gets worse because you're indirectly training the individual and telling them, hey, your behavior is exactly what I'm looking for. Your behavior is what I want in a partner or in a mother to my children or in a father to my children. It's like there's so much that goes into it, and I think a lot of people my age who are in their early to mid 30s, we grew up in a different time. I remember growing up where we didn't have the internet. I remember growing up as like in order to meet people, you literally had to leave your house. I remember growing up where we had dial-up, where you couldn't use the phone. Um, I remember downloading, music off LimeWire, so the things like that, right? So, there's so technology is so great these days, where you can guys that could produce music like me. I remember back in the day, you had to literally go to the studio, pay to get studio time, and then have them format your shit to make it sound professional, and that shit costs money. And nowadays, you can pick up your own studio setup for probably less than $2,000. It's relatively not that expensive. Um, but technology, in terms of my whole point of all this is that it doesn't allow people to be vulnerable. It's like it's different having a conversation with somebody face to face versus having it through a screen. Now I get it if your significant other is traveling for work and he or she's not gonna be home for 2 weeks. FaceTime, whatever it is, that's great. Because that's the only way you can physically see them. That's perfectly fine, right? I'm talking about the people who do online dating and who do X, Y, and Z, and it's like they want to say like, oh yeah, well, it's like there's no surface, there's nothing there except the surface. I'm like, what would you expect, you know? And what I find is that a lot of women are on these dating websites and they don't have the mental capacity to actually hold a conversation. And that's not me being sexist. That's basically what I'm saying from my experience. It's like, take for instance Bumble, right? I'm sure I'm not the only guy who's had this happen to him, but you match with somebody, and because they match with you first, right? They have a 24-hour time period where they can respond to you, and it's like, a majority of the messages that most men get on these apps, especially Bumble, is, "Hey, how are you?" And never mind the fact that our profiles, they're filled out, if not 100% filled out, they're partially filled out or whatever it is. Or it's like, take for example, like somebody would say, "Oh, so what's your hobbies and everything?" Like boom, boom, boom. And if they actually took time to read your profile, they would understand that, what your hobbies are and what you like and things of that nature, and why you chose the job you chose, or what made you go into that particular field. Try to expound on what they already know at the surface level. That's the whole point of the Bible. Um, I remember this one girl a while back. I had matched with her in Bumble, um, and we had talked and everything too, for a couple of days, and like it was cool. And then she gave me her number. So and then I had her, I had texted her whatnot, and so we was talking on the phone, and our very first conversation that we had was like, she was talking about, yeah, I can't wait to jump your bones, and I'm like, Ma, I don't even know you like that. Mind you, this is the actual first conversation we've had, and it didn't last long because I was turned off by that, because it's like, yo, I was like, I get it, people want sex, people want casual hookups and everything like that too, but it's like, if that, make it clear what you want, like don't come out the box simply just by saying that. It's like, or don't come out the box and say that and expect some guy to be like, oh yeah, like, well, I want your ass too. Majority of the time, like most guys will jump on that, but they're not gonna look at you as wifey material or girlfriend material. They're gonna look at you as, oh, that's the girl off Bumble, or that's the girl off Tinder, or that's the girl off whatever dating website that you was on, right? And it's wild to me that women would do that and then want to sit there and be like, well, he didn't show me no attention, he didn't do X, Y, and Z. He's like, why? What for? Why would he show you attention? Why would he make effort to get to know you? You already gave up the most valuable thing you got in hopes of attracting a man. You didn't you didn't attract us to anything. All you did was give us access to something that's should be earned and should be protected, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's also very unfortunate that a lot of women will look past good dudes, simply because, for a plethora of different reasons, whether we don't make enough money or whether, or X, Y, and Z, all kinds of crazy shit, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, it's crazy. These women are like, well, like my man has to make $250K a year. He has to do X, Y, and Z as a profession. He has to do X, Y, and Z as that. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, you realize that the numbers that you just mentioned, there's only a particular percent of people who make that type of money, right? And the thing about it too is like majority of these people in these brackets, they're not women. you know. But getting back to the vulnerability part of it too, it's also extremely important that people learn to be vulnerable. I'm not saying that online dating doesn't have its place, doesn't have, in a place in people's lives, but at the same time, we shouldn't be living through a screen. We shouldn't be having conversations through a screen and then we show up in person and there's nothing to talk about. You know? So there's so many different things that people just fail to realize. It's like, yo, if you took your time and actually put yourself out there, I'm not saying go to a nightclub or go to a bar, hell, you can go to a bookstore. You can go, you can go to the grocery store. Believe it or not, bro, you have no idea how many women hit on me at the fucking grocery store. It's insane. It literally is insane. And I think part of being vulnerable with somebody is knowing that you're in a safe space with them. And knowing that they won't use what you tell them in confidence against you. Because there's a difference between trying to correct somebody's behavior and using what they've told you or what you've told them in confidence against you. What I mean by that is like, if you're the type of person who people pleases, right? Or if you're the type of person who doesn't know how to cut people off, and these particular individuals keep coming back and forth into your life, and I'm like, you can't complain about that because number one, there is no clear-cut boundary for you to say, okay, look, there is no friendship here, there's no relationship here. Stop communication. Block them, on social media, block them from your phone, delete the number, and keep it moving. Because if you don't respect yourself and have boundaries, people aren't going to do that for you. A lot of people will use you until there's nothing of value of you left. And once you figure that out, and once you figure out who's there for you and who actually wants you to succeed and wants you to become a better version of yourself, keep them around. Because there's so many women out there and so many men out there who end up in relationships, and who don't know how to call it quits or who don't know how to end certain things because they no longer want it, they no longer wanted to carry on. And I'm looking at it like, okay, but just communicate that, and how that person takes it is 100% on them. How that person takes it is 100% on them because their emotions is not your responsibility. You are your responsibility. So if you don't have the wherewithal to respect boundaries, that means you don't respect yourself. And that goes back to being vulnerable. What I mean by that is feeling your emotions, understanding what you're going through, but not living in that emotions 24/7. Quick story about me. You guys have known, I just lost my brother a couple months ago. My man was my best friend, thick and thin, we did damn near everything together, and me and him both had cerebral palsy. He had a more severe version of it, but I never saw another human being live life the way he did. So vivaciously, so wanted to do anything and everything, and it's like he let nothing stop him, And it's like we see people who are quote unquote normal, who don't have any physical ailments, who don't have any physical disabilities, complain about life. I'm like, yo, it's like there's 24 hours in a day, there's 7 days in a week. To quote Morgan Freeman, who famously once said, the bus runs every day. And he was on that show with Don Lemon on CNN. And Don Lemon was talking about, and I'll never forget it. Don Lemon was talking about, well, it's really hard for some people, to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get shit done. And Morgan Freeman famously said, bullshit, man, the bus runs every day. Meaning, if you want to make a change, there's opportunity around you every single day. So go ahead and be that change. Because you don't know who you're going to inspire. You don't know who you're going to motivate. You don't know who's going to see that. Be like, yo, Mikey and Paul did it. Paul was my twin brother. That was his name. Mikey and Paul did this. What the fuck is stopping me? Like, I've never seen two brothers with a physical disability live life so vivaciously as they did. And my man traveled. He did X, Y, and Z. He did everything he wanted to do. He literally had a bucket list. My man had a bucket list. And he checked off everything except for maybe one or two things. But you know what? He loved his life. He lived his life. And I wish more people would do that. I wish more people would understand that your time is limited. So be vulnerable. Love hard. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't think that people are going to change simply because you want them to. Life don't work that way. Life doesn't work that way because people aren't you. People have to stop expecting other people to be you because you want them to be better. A lot of people don't want to be better. They just want to stay the same. And to wrap this up, like my dad once said, he told me once, he said, man, there's two types of people in this world. Two types of people in this world. Those who grow older with wisdom and those who just grow older. I'm going to say it again. There's two types of people in this world. Those who grow older with wisdom and those who just grow older. You have to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to grow old with wisdom? Or are you going to just grow old? All right, y'all. This is about 17 minutes of your life that you won't get back. Hope y'all keeping it positive. Keeping the 4-piece. Private player positive pushing. I'll see y'all next week Sunday. I love y'all. Ghosts. Like I always say, man. Know your worth because you're better than what you are. Peace.